So putting barriers between your health and your wealth is really known as Medicaid planning. In other words, how to qualify for the government benefits of Medicaid without being absolutely broke. The body of techniques that makes this up is numerous. There's about 8 different techniques, 8 different ways that you can put barriers between your health and your wealth. 5 of the 8 techniques have to be done in advance, but 3 of the 8 techniques are still available even last minute. Now, this is not necessarily the simplest of subjects. I actually am holding the law book here on the formula on what needs to happen in order to qualify for Medicaid. The book is not thin. It is really quite thick. It gets updated every year. This is the 2020 version. And they charge a lot of money for this book, almost 50 cents a page. So this book is several $100s. That's why Taylor is written in red on all of the edges. We don't want this book growing legs and walking off because it's quite an investment for us. So when it comes to this issue, this Medicaid planning, putting barriers between your health and your wealth, you really want to work with a team of professionals, not just a certified financial planner like we are, but also a certified elder law attorney. Not just your family law attorney who helped you with a real estate settlement or helped you with a will many years ago, but a specialist, somebody who specializes in this book, who's read it cover to cover, and who has had many clients that they've helped with. So you want to have that team of professionals, a certified elder law attorney and a certified financial planner as well. So long-term care. Long-term care can be incredibly expensive and completely devastating to a family's finances. Too often it's something that's ignored until it's right upon you and there's no way of avoiding it. At this stage, there's still some things that you can do to protect and shield your assets. I think it's important though to share with you what most people do is absolutely nothing, which is really the wrong thing to do. If you do absolutely nothing, a snapshot gets taken of the family's finances. It's an application for Medicaid. In that application, they make you put down all of your income and all of your assets. And then they come back with a report in terms of what you're allowed to keep. They call that exempt, and what you must spend down, they call that over-resourced. Spend down means this is money that you have to take out of your accounts, out of your investments, assets that you have to sell, and then use those proceeds for acceptable expenses, things like paying the nursing home bill and other related medical things. So they can force you to spend all the way down to some very low limits. For married folks, they could force you to spend your investments and your bank accounts all the way down to about $26,000. That's it. That's all you'd be allowed to keep. For a single person, it's even worse. They could force the single person to spend their assets all the way down to $2,400. Now, it's better than losing everything, but living the rest of your life off of a portfolio of $2,400 is pretty laughable, pretty ridiculous. So how do you prevent something like this from occurring if you haven't done any pre-planning? Well, I'm going to share with you 3 techniques here today where you can put barriers between your family's health and your family's wealth, even if a person is on the doorstep of needing long-term care. So we're not going to be talking about insurance, which is really the best way to go, but that bridge has already been crossed in that if somebody's needing care, they're no longer going to be insurable. You got to get the insurance earlier on when you're younger and healthier. But even at the late stage, there's still 3 things that you can do. And we're going to talk about all 3 here today. The number 1 easiest thing you can do is a burial reserve account. The number 2 thing that we're going to talk about is a technique called half a loaf. It's a way of protecting half of the family's assets. And then the final technique we'll talk about is a technique known as spousal annuity. Spousal annuity only works for married folks, but it can allow you to protect 100% of the investment accounts. So that's a very powerful technique. So let's jump into talking about the burial reserve account. The burial reserve account is basically a savings account, an account that you set money aside in so that at the end of the days, there's money available for final expenses. Now there's some flexibility on what final expenses are, and there's some planning opportunities in regards to that. These burial reserve accounts are actually provided by life insurance companies. It's not exactly a life insurance policy. It looks a little bit like a life insurance policy, but it's guaranteed issue. There's no nurse that comes by the house. There's no getting copies of your medical records. It's just depositing a lump sum into an account that then earns interest, and then that lump sum plus the interest gets paid out tax-free at time of death. Now, every county has a limit on how much you can place into a burial reserve account. The lowest limit in all of Pennsylvania is with Mifflin County. Their limit is $10,000. So you're only allowed to place $10,000 per person into one of these burial reserve accounts. Now, the highest county is Allegheny. Allegheny actually allows a little bit over $20,000 to go into a burial reserve account. Now, every county is different, and if you'd like to know what the reserve limits are in your county, that's a great reason to reach out to us here at Taylor Retirement Services. We can share with you how much you can place into a burial reserve account in your county and still be in compliance with the law. So the burial reserve account allows you to set aside $10,000 to $20,000 per person that is exempt from the nursing home and is exempt from Medicaid's spend down process. In other words, this is money that's kept for the spouse, kept for the family, kept for final expenses regardless. But it's only $10,000 to $20,000. It's very easy though, and it can be done in just a day or two. So I wanted to mention that technique first. So that is the burial reserve account. If you or a family member has given something away or is thinking about giving something away, and you'd like help calculating the penalty period for Medicaid benefits in your family situation, well, reach out to us. Give us a call or send us an email. Second on the list is the half a loaf technique. This is a little bit complex, but it's not too bad. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I call it bingo gossip. It's the retelling of stories, and details get left out and details get changed. It's not gospel, it's gossip. And one of the gossipy things that I hear is, well, if you give any money away, that's illegal and you won't get any type of benefits through Medicaid or anything else for 5 years. I hear that all the time, and that is not accurate. Is an oversimplifying to the point of being wrong of what the law code actually says. What the half a loaf technique does is it actually understands the true penalty period and uses it to your advantage. See, think about it like this. Let's say it's Sunday and you put money in the offering plate at church. That's a gift. And then on Monday, you need long-term care. Are they going to say, well, you're not allowed to receive any type of medical assistance for 5 years because you put money in the offering plate on Sunday? Well, obviously not. So thinking that any type of gift automatically triggers a 5-year penalty is incorrect thinking. So what the law code says in Pennsylvania is for every $352 you give away, you disqualify yourself from being able to receive Medicaid benefits or medical assistant benefits for 1 day. So for every $352 you give away, that means 1 day you're not allowed to or you're not able to qualify for Medicaid. Now, if you multiply that out, that comes to $128,794 in a year's time. That's the average cost of long-term care in Pennsylvania. So that's where that number comes from. So what they're saying is if you give away $128,794 worth of assets, let's say investments or classic cars or what have you, any type of asset, you are eliminated from receiving medical assistance for 1 year. Now they place an upper limit on that. Let's say somebody gave away $10 million to their kids and their grandkids. That's where the 5-year comes in. The penalty period is for up to a maximum of 5 years, but it's not an automatic 5 years. So if you give away more than $643,969.50 or more, so let's just call it $650,000. So if you're giving away something less than $650,000, well then the period of penalty or the period of not being able to receive medical assistance or Medicaid benefits is something less than 5 years. So this is where the half a loaf technique comes in. Let's say you've got $260,000 in investments. That's the family's life savings. And somebody needs long-term care, and you're very concerned that this expense is going to erode the life savings away down to next to nothing. Well, instead of spending down that $260,000 to next to nothing, what you could do is gift $130,000 right now to the kids or grandkids. So gifting $130,000 right now will trigger the penalty period. And remember, it's not an automatic 5 years. It's $352 given away equals 1 day. So if you give away $130,000, that triggers a penalty period of roughly 1 year. So what that says is for the next year, you have to pay for long-term care out of your own pocket. So if you give away half of $260,000, you give away $130,000, you keep $130,000. The $130,000 that you keep then gets used up over the next year to pay for the long-term care, satisfying that penalty period. So you're able to give away half of the resources. The other half, though, is retained by the client, retained by the sick person, if you will, and spent down or paid out or annuitized, however you want to say it, to pay the bills during that penalty period. When their money runs out, the $130,000 that they've retained, then they've also completed the penalty period at that point as well, and then they're able to step in right away to receiving medical assistance or Medicaid. So the half a loaf technique is whatever amount of money you have, cut in half, gets sent to the kids or the grandkids. The other half is retained to pay the bills during the penalty period. So if your investment portfolio is greater than $1.3 million, the half a loaf technique still works, but the maximum amount that you need to retain is only ever $643,969.50. Let's just round it off and call it $650,000. So if your portfolio is $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, well, then you can actually gift everything except that $650,000, because that's all that's really needed to satisfy the penalty period. Now, this is a very useful technique for older parents. I have quite a few clients over the years, widows or widowers, single folks, who let's say they have $1.3 million, $1.4 million, $1.5 million, and they're in their 90s, and they just don't need all that money anymore. Well, there's some good, sound financial planning reasons to gift everything except that $640,000, $650,000 to the next generation. It protects the money from Medicaid, and it also helps with death taxes as well. So another good usage of the half a loaf technique is for older folks who want to gift some money to the kids and grandkids now and not be worried that they might be damaging themselves down the road, especially when it comes to this long-term care issue. So as long as you, mom, or you, dad, retain $640,000, $650,000 in your investment portfolio, you'll be just fine when it comes to this long-term care issue. If you or a family member has given something away or is thinking about giving something away, and you'd like help calculating the penalty period for Medicaid benefits in your family situation, well, reach out to us. Give us a call or send us an email. A third technique for putting barriers between your health and your wealth and preserving the family's assets when one of them needs long-term care, even if it's last-minute planning, is the spousal annuity technique. Now, this is a great technique in that it can protect an unlimited amount of money immediately for the family, but it has its weaknesses. It only works for married couples who file a joint tax return and who have powers of attorney on each other. Now, a power of attorney is a legal document that simply restores what it means to be married. Over the years, the definition of marriage has been chipped away at by the lawyers and the politicians, where in order for spouses to completely act on each other's behalves, as if they would expect by being married, you actually need to have a power of attorney in place now. And that's really true of all of these techniques. All of these techniques shouldn't be done in a vacuum. They should be done not just with your certified financial planner like myself, but they should also be done in conjunction with a certified elder law attorney. And we have several of them on retainer at Taylor Retirement Services to help our clients with these things as well. Well, back to the spousal annuity technique. It works for married folks who file a joint tax return, who have power of attorney on each other. And how it works is all of the excess resources. Remember, those are the investments above and beyond the $25,728 mark. Let's just call it $26,000. So investments above and beyond the $26,000 mark, remember, they get spent down. You have to use that money on the cost of care. You're not allowed to keep it and use it for yourself. Well, the spousal annuity technique takes that money that otherwise would be lost and annuitizes it to the healthy spouse. Now, if you've watched one of our other videos before on the basics of annuities, you already know what I mean by this. If you haven't, after this video, it might make sense to go ahead and click on that link and watch the video on annuity basics. Now, by annuitizing the investments, what you're doing is you're changing it from a lump sum into a guaranteed pension. Now, lump sums are counted against the family. They're like coveting, and that's a sin. But turning it into a pension, that's like your daily bread, and your sins are forgiven. They allow you to keep your daily bread. So changing it from a lump sum that's counted against you into a pension that's not counted against you, that's the spousal annuity technique. Now, this pension must be paid to the healthy spouse. It cannot be paid to both spouses jointly, and it cannot be paid to the kids. It must be paid to the healthy spouse. See, there's a wrinkle in the law code, and it's a good wrinkle, and the wrinkle says that all income in the name of the healthy spouse is exempt up to an unlimited amount. So the healthy spouse could have $10,000 a month in pension income and annuity income, and they're allowed to keep all of that and spend all of that on themselves. And that means that they could spend it however they want. They could spend it by taking the kids and the grandkids out to dinner. They could spend it by putting it in a 529 plan for the grandkids. They could spend it by paying for a trip to Disney. The only thing is they have to spend it. But that's a good problem to have in retirement. You've got to spend money on your kids and grandkids and yourself, right? That's a good problem. And we're all about creating good problems here at Taylor Retirement Services. So by changing this lump sum into a pension that pays to the healthy spouse, the healthy spouse now has complete control over that money to do whatever they want with it. Meanwhile, the sick spouse qualifies for Medicaid or medical assistance immediately. There is no penalty period, there is no look back. This is taking a lump sum and turning it into a pension, which is a completely acceptable use of money. It's like if you went to the grocery store and bought groceries and then just didn't get a chance to eat them, that's fine. So you went to the annuity store and you bought an annuity to provide an income for the healthy spouse. And that's completely acceptable. There is no look back on that, just like there's no look back on, well, you went to the grocery store and bought groceries. So the spousal annuity technique converts lump sums into pensions. Those pensions are paid to the healthy spouse, and then the healthy spouse gets to use that pension income however they want. Meanwhile, the sick spouse gets 100% of their care paid for by medical assistance. So that's the spousal annuity technique. So in closing, even if you've done no planning in the event of long-term care and a family member is now needing long-term care and you're looking at this video last minute, there's still things you can do. You can do burial reserve accounts and set aside $10,000 to $20,000 per person that can't be taken away. You can do the half a loaf technique, where half of your assets can be gifted to the kids and grandkids now protecting that half. Now, the other half that's retained does get used up to pay for long-term care. Or if you're married, you can do the spousal annuity technique and protect all of the over-resourced investments by turning it into a pension for the healthy spouse. So there are things that can be done even at this late stage to put barriers between your health and your wealth. And this is one of the things that we're most proud of at my firm, Taylor Retirement Services, is that we know this body of techniques and we use them to help our clients maintain the lifestyle that they're looking for. If you or a family member has given something away or is thinking about giving something away, and you'd like help calculating how this will affect Medicaid benefits, reach out to us, give us a call, or send us an email.